Yo, what's up, everybody? I already seen the chat. You're gonna stop me right there. No, 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 you're not, because I'm correct. Thing is, he didn't even say anything about power scaling. He actually did. He's talking about versus battles. So, power scaling and versus battles go hand in hand. Um, but we'll get into it. It really is more so people misconstruing what Stan Lee was actually saying. I'll get into that. There's a couple anti-power scaling videos I wanted to react to today. Don't leave my... Well, here's the thing. I'll start off by saying that I'm a massive Marvel and Stan Lee fan. I cried when Stan Lee died. Like, this is nothing against Stan Lee whatsoever. It's just people basically misconstruing his words, and even then, I kind of disagree with how he went about it. We'll get into it. What's up, Leslie? Hope you're doing good. But it's not really provocative. I mean, I guess you can say it is, but... I mean, just because he's Stan Lee doesn't mean he can't be wrong. But again, you'll see it's mainly people misconstruing his words. But we'll react to this kind of massive anti-power video that's like went kind of viral, semi-viral. It's not a very good takedown of power scaling. It's actually very hypocritical. And if you think about it for a few seconds, the logic falls very flat on its face. But I'll react to that video and break it down. And then also we'll be breaking down the infamous anti-power scaling Stan Lee video. And why it's not a good... Like, the Stan Lee does not really attack power scaling, if you think about it. But... let's get into it. Oh. I need to find my phone, because my phone's going to be showing my chat. Oh, I know what he said, but, what I'm saying is that while that is true, his response to power scaling is not great, and the way that people twist his words is also even worse. That's fine if you don't like power scaling, Leslie. But it's not about that, really. It's really that there's an anti-power scaling crowd. There's one thing when you don't like power scaling, right? And then there's another thing to say you don't like power scaling, and then saying that it's dumb for other people to power scaling. And then also a lot of anti-power scalers, they just power scaling ways and they're bad at it. This just seems like cope. If the author wants someone to win or lose, it doesn't matter how much math you spit out, it's going to happen. It's not cope at all. I mean, actually, because as someone who would I'm not nearly the level of Stan Lee. I haven't even actually released a book, but I actually have been hired to write stories before, and I've written multiple books. But when it comes to writing quality, you don't just have Spider-Man being punched by some random guy in the subway and getting knocked out. There's a lot of stuff that's important when it comes to narrative consistency when it applies to power scaling. If a writer just lets somebody win only because they want them to win, and not because the story sets up of why they want that person to win, then it's bad writing. So, a lot of people don't realize this power scaling is also partially narrative analysis. Like, that's what a lot of people don't realize, is that power scaling is, in a sense, narrative analysis. When crazy bad shit happens, like incredibly weak characters doing wild shit, it's bad writing. But I swear, Stan Lee stands just fucking wank the fuck out of this statement and anti-power scalers. Well, I mean, nobody likes the statement because it's wrong, for one. Like, well, yeah, we'll be reacting to a video, but not cope at all. Especially because The idea of saying if the author wants someone to win, that only applies to inverse power scaling. The author doesn't write two different franchises. The author doesn't write the author doesn't write Black Clover. Like, Tabata is not the author of Black Clover and Jujutsu Kaisen. Tabata can only decide who wins in Black Clover, and Gege Akutami can only decide who wins in Jujutsu Kaisen. So no, the author does not get to choose who wins when it's Asta versus Gojo, for example. How the writers wrote their characters decides who wins that battle. Yeah, you're right, Spice Master. It technically is just straight up narrative analysis. It's just like a different kind. But that's the thing, guys. You can't just say the author wins because they're the author when the author doesn't write multiple different series. That's true, Josie X. People underestimate the reading comprehension of power scalers. It's most often because anti-power scalers, they don't know anything about power scaling, to be frank. And there's nothing wrong with that. That was my point. Well, if that's your point, true, but that's what my point is that people use the Stan Lee video to argue that any power scaling is wrong. But also, even Stan Lee's own statement of the author chooses to who wins, it doesn't even tackle inverse power scaling very well. Because Tabata, he can have it so that Rebecca in Black Clover is the one who defeats Lucius. But obviously, that's very likely not going to happen because in Black Clover, we can power scale and determine that she doesn't have any crazy abilities. She's not very strong. What is she going to do? And if that does happen, it's going to be bad writing. So there is power scaling. Even inverse, Stan Lee's statement is wrong. But yeah, let's get into the video, guys. This is a 422,000 view. Narrative equals bro, just can't contradict. I don't know what you're trying to say. Lil Row. Phantom X, I'm not saying that the statement is better if it's writing their own story, but I'm saying that even then, like that critique of power scaling doesn't even work anyways. Because power scaling necessitates that the author can do that. Power scaling is... Rebecca's the true villain. Oh my god. Exactly. We'll talk about... Because this guy is definitely an anti-power scaler. Doesn't really understand power scaling. No hate to this guy, so yeah, do not... I'm sure none of you will, because it's just about power scaling. It's nothing crazy or anything, but... Yeah. Technically, the author can change everything depending on the rules, yes. The author can do anything they want, but that usually doesn't happen. If it does, it's bad writing. Oh my god, you guys literally cannot understand my point. Holy fuck. Did I ever say that he can't do that? No, I said that Tabata very likely wouldn't do that with Rebecca because she has no abilities to do that, no power to do that. If he does that, it would be bad writing. My Jesus. Alright. Okay, I just realized that the video wasn't displaying. Alright. I should be working now. Exactly, so that's exactly my point, Seals. Just because they can do anything doesn't mean that they should or they will. Yeah, that's exactly the point.
Who would win in a fight? An age-old question that just about every nerdily inclined individual in the world has debated with their friends about at least once in their life. Whether it's Superman versus Goku, Master Chief versus Doom Guy, or any other of the practically infinite matchups pulled from a cross-fiction of all mediums, there seems to be nothing we love more than a good cross-universe dust-up. Dating back as far as I can remember, these debates raged on. Everywhere from the uncool table in middle school cafeterias to late nights at a...
Alright, I just want to address chat. Power scaling is equally, if not less, subjective than any other form of narrative analysis, or subjective. Yeah, it actually is. It's less subjective than any other form of narrative analysis. Yeah, it's actually more objective. So you are right. Laughing at wrong car. And then the reason he stan do it with Rebecca is because he hasn't set Ren, because up for that power is an issue. The narrative is. I have no idea, Mr. Star, what you said. Just rephrase that. Yeah, because I have no idea what you're trying to say there.
Friends sleepover when actually sleeping was off the menu, there was always a new matchup to discuss. And nowadays, with the advent of internet message boards, YouTube series like Death Battle, crossover fighting games like Smash Bros, Jump Force, and Mortal Kombat guest rosters, hell, even big Hollywood movies getting in on the action, the landscape of conversation for these
I don't know. I think it might be a little too loud, so I'm going to turn it down. Let me know if this is too quiet, though.
hypothetical contests of strength is bigger and more intense than ever. And that's all well and good. Like I said, I've had my fair share of arguments over this stuff too. There's nothing wrong with occasionally shooting the shit with a buddy on a long car ride about how Gandalf would totally wipe the floor with Dumbledore or whatever you feel like talking about. But, some of you guys, you take it too far. I'm referring...
Alright, so this is, like, the point, right? Is that he is saying it's okay to shoot the shit, right? It's okay to just shoot the shit and talk about power scaling. Why is it not okay to take it more seriously? Why is it not okay to actually give analysis to it? Because really, as we've already discussed, power scaling is narrative analysis. Like, we are literally saying, oh, well, in the narrative, this character is stated to have the highest magic power or whatever, for example. This character has strong abilities that do this, but this ability, it does well against this, but not very well against this. Like, that's actually within the narrative. Power scaling is analysis of the narrative. It's like testing, like, the limits of what characters can do. So why can't power scalers do this, but people making fan theories or people doing just like basic narrative analysis of the series or character analysis, why can they do that, but power scalers can't? When power scaling, as we just went over in the chat, power scaling is more objective than other forms of narrative analysis. Because oftentimes narrative analysis is like how good is this character, how good is this story, how good is this plot. That type of stuff of how you like characters, how you like plots is more subjective. So, like I said, it's equal game. It's all fair game to talk about all of these concepts, all these topics. I don't know what his point would be, but Ethan, yeah, you can tell me what you think his point is, but I don't think he had a point at all. Okay, well, you're going to have to bring up a non-One Piece example, because I have no idea what you're talking about, Mr. Star. Narrative is the point of the story, not who's stronger. I actually think that's very, very wrong, and when you're talking about battle shonen, because how strong characters are is incredibly important to the narrative. But I'm going to rewind it.
Specifically to the seconds. But, some of you guys, you take it too far. I'm referring specifically to the practice of power scaling. If you're unfamiliar with the term, it basically entails taking a fictional character, figuring out all of the most impressive things they've ever done, these are called feats, and attempting to use real-world measurements, math, and science to figure out exactly how fast and strong said character is, as well as the effects of whatever special abilities they might have. More weight tends to be given to stuff that we actually see the character do, but sometimes things that are only alluded to are used as feats as well. Upon figuring all this stuff out, the character is usually given a power rating based on the results. A few different metrics are used, but the most common rating system is based on attack potency and durability. Essentially, what's the biggest thing they could destroy with a single attack, and what's the most powerful attack they could possibly endure with.
So this is the thing when it comes to, like, anti-power scalers, is he doesn't even know what attack potency is. Like, I understand, like, it gets confusing when people throw out terms like, oh, they're multiversal, they're multicontinental, or whatever, but attack potency is not how big the things are you can destroy. That's destructive capacity or destructive capability. DC. AP is just the energy that is within your punch. So, no. This is an incorrect thing, but again, he's just trying to explain what power scaling is, so this is not really the meat of what needs to be discussed.
Without dying. This scale ranges from the infinitesimally small all the way up to boundless infinite strength. A similar
Giovan, I get what you're saying, but Wank can overscale a character beyond what the narrative is meant to imply. Yeah, people do that, but also you'd have to argue that that is the case, because again, part of power scaling is subjective, but you have to like show why these characters are that strong. Like you can't like there's bad power scaling, don't get me wrong, but there's also terrible narrative analysis. Like sure, there's bad power scaling, but then there's all these critiques of Black Clover video, or not Black Clover videos, Black Clover the anime out there, Black Clover the manga, and their critiques are terrible too. So just because there's bad power scaling doesn't mean that power scaling is bad.
Power scale is used for speed feats that ranges from immobile to massively faster than light. Once you've got your rating...
Again, I'll say this is wrong because there's multiple speed tiers beyond. There's infinite, inaccessible, immeasurable, possibly irrelevant, but I mean, again, this is not a big deal. He's just kind of explaining what power scaling is, not that he has to get everything right about what is in power scaling. Yo, what's up, Kate Lizzie? Thanks for coming in.
For both characters in the matchup, you simply compare the stats. With characters that are clearly in different leagues and have no business fighting each other, the match is considered a stomp. But otherwise, the debate typically starts with these things and progresses to comparisons of things like intelligence, skills, experience, equipment, character flaws, and theorizing about how certain unique powers might interact with one another. Eventually, hopefully, whoever is running the debate will decide a winner. If this all seems reasonable enough, if perhaps a bit dorky so far to you, then I would agree. But upon closer scrutiny, 3 fatal flaws in this methodology are made clear. With the first being, authors don't care about power scaling.
He's objectively wrong. There is so many authors that care about power scaling. Like, you see, like that's the thing, is that authors don't care about power scaling. Why are characters giving the strongest magic statements in Black Clover? Like, if power scaling doesn't matter, why does it say that Lucifer has the greatest magic power? Mr. Star, you're wrong. There's a bunch of different feats or statements throughout the entire series that Oz does on par with, not just because they're rivals, so that's actually wrong. But, no, like, there's so many authors that, like literally power scale. Like, like, if he wants to say that, sure, are authors not doing calculations of the feats of their characters, but again, that doesn't matter because they're still having the characters produce these feats. That these feats happen in the series. It doesn't matter if the author... Like, if the author has a character do something, why can't we use it if the author literally made that happen? Like, and again, I'm not some big shot author. Like, I'm trying to become an author one day. I've actually been hired to write stories before. I've written multiple books. I'm a small shot guy, but yes, you do have to power scale your series because you can't have some character who's constantly hyped up to be god tier and then just get no-diffed by some nobody with no because then that'd be like ass pull like power scaling or fighting within it. So exactly, the power scaling within JJK. Like, Gege obviously power scales his own series. Exactly, so yeah, again, great point, Solo. Why do they make data books that expand more about characters' powers if they don't power scale? Like, why does Gege like talk about how Infinity works in like the in-betweens of chapters if he didn't power scale?
Everyone writes with this stuff in mind. When a writer is constructing a scene, their priority and main focus is going to be on developing the characters, furthering the storyline, delivering on a cool action sequence, or in all likelihood, doing several of those at once.
Again, we already talked about this. If you have a character, like again, for people who watch Black Clover, read Black Clover, if Rebecca comes out of nowhere and beats Lucius, it's bad writing. So obviously authors do at least power scale their series a little bit, or else all of the fights could be potentially trash because then you have random weak characters coming in and fighting god tier characters. And this happens because of the sheer amount of comics that exist in Marvel and DC. It does happen occasionally, and then those are usually maligned as being bad issues. So, it's just wrong. Paris, like, if he wants to say they don't, like authors don't calculate the pixels of what happened or whatever, that's definitely probably true. I probably almost no authors do that. But when it comes to, my main villain just destroyed a country with the wave of his hand, like, So that's kind of the stuff we're setting up here. Or this character, this wizard, to say they have the most powerful spells. Like, authors clearly power scale. It's basically undebatable. It's undeniable.
Turn is almost never going to be, how can I write this in such a way as to facilitate consistency and comparison of my character with those of another author? Like, what? It's hard enough to just make everything work within the logic of your own world and rules. And a lot of writers, even very skilled ones, will display some degree of inconsistency even when comparing characters within the same series, or the same character between different scenes, let alone having to scale it properly with everyone else's completely separate imaginary worlds.
When authors are tired, they don't care about power scaling. I disagree. I mean, they probably are more likely to make it like bad writing when it comes to power scaling, but like there's mangaka that are tired all the time. They still do power scaling.
And characters that operate on totally different rule sets. 99% of the time, a writer just wants to create an awesome, effective, emotionally compelling scene that will be satisfying to their own audience.
And is a scene gonna be is a fight gonna be emotionally compelling if Rebecca comes out of nowhere and one shots Lucius? No. What part of what makes these scenes compelling is if the power of these characters is written well. But that's the thing, Mr. Star. If you're saying if you can make it make sense, then that is how power scaling works. That is literally how power scaling works. If Rebecca comes literally out of nowhere, that's bad writing. But then if it explains that Rebecca trained throughout the entire time, found the magic item, and she really had a secret ability that was very powerful all along, well, that adds to the power scaling of how it goes down. Like, I think you're confusing narrative, like what the author can literally do anything, but if it's set up, then it's good, and how things are set up. If a character's power is foreshadowed, that is power scaled. Exactly, Infinity. Power scaling can make or break a story. That's true. Spice Master. Yeah, I'm in the middle of Death of the Author. I think Death of the Author is a very, very cogent argument. What I think is that the word of the author can be taken as long as the narrative doesn't contradict it. So, like, if an author says something in a data book, which is out of the narrative, as long as it's not contradicted, then I think you can take it. But if it's contradicted, then no. But no, I think that Death of the Author is a powerful thing, which is why I think a lot of the author intent claims like fall flat on their face, because authors do things all the time that they don't intend, and then later on they're like, oh well, even though I didn't intend for this to be the case, I actually liked it anyways, and it makes sense. So
audience and within the context of their own story. And a lot of the time, a character doing something that makes for a cool visual is much more important for affecting the audience than a 100% adherence to consistency will be. A perfect example of this is a scene from Part 6 of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Stone Ocean. The main character, Jolene, is trapped in a maximum security prison, and a huge fight breaks out between her, the guards, and several other prisoners. And being that this is an anime, everyone involved has wacky superpowers. Jolene can manifest a powerful spectral figure called a stand to fight alongside her. She also has some cool other abilities that are tied to that, but they aren't super relevant to this discussion. Her opponent, a prison guard named Westwood, has the power to call down small meteors from space to his location for use as projectiles. During the course of this fight, Jolene is about to be hit by one of these meteors and punches it away with her stand at the last second, destroying the meteors, but breaking her hand in the process, since she also takes any damage done to her stand. Pretty badass, right? Makes for a thrilling moment in a high-stakes fight. Now, given the scene, and without doing any further research, where on the aforementioned power scale would you place Jolene? Well, let's see what the professional power scalers over at Death Battle had to say about this.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you want to say that, like, Death Battle, like, in a sense, sure, they are professional power scales. They do get a lot of things wrong, though.
Yes.
Just as strong as Stone Free, which can punch meteors that were pulled to Earth in seconds.
By measuring the distance the meteors are from Earth, we can estimate they were moving at over 11 million meters per second. Factoring in their mass, they'd each have a kinetic energy of 441 kilotons of TNT.
What?
Okay, how close was your guess?
You know, I think I might full screen this.
I was pretty fucking far off the mark. I mean, the conclusion they draw here is completely ridiculous. Even assuming that all of their math and measurements are correct, which I'm sure they are, if you genuinely think that Hirohiko Araki's intention with this scene was to say that Jolene's stand is capable of punching with the force of a small nuclear bomb, then you are insane. This is
Alright, so this is just appealing to absurdity. This is a logical fallacy. Like, that's the entire argument, is a logical fallacy. Appealing to absurdity. Yeah, so basically, Marcel, like, anti-power scaling as a whole, like, topic is just getting popular again. There's a couple videos that have done really well talking about it. And again, Stan Lee's quote is getting like quote mined all over the place. But anyways, back to what this guy said. Like, if you believe this you're crazy, that's literally appealing to absurdity. Like, there's no like argument provided as to why this can't be the case. Like, you literally have her punching a meteor. Like, I've only seen like up to halfway through part 3 of JoJo, so I have no idea. I've seen other people like break down this guy's specific analysis of why he's wrong or whatever, but yeah, like, she literally punches a meteor. Like,
It's a Prison Break story, and we're clearly shown earlier on in the series that her stand, while being quite strong, about strong enough to bend a quarter in half with its fingers, is not quite powerful enough to break through the bars on Jolene's prison cell. Not to mention all the time throughout the series where she needs to unleash a barrage of attacks to finish a fight with opponents that have ordinary human durability. If she was actually intended to be as strong as this feat shows, then the entire rest of the series makes a lot less sense. Now, clearly, Araki wrote that scene because he thought it would be badass to have his protagonist punch a flaming meteor.
alright, this is another issue with anti-power scalers. They automatically think they know exactly what the author's intent was. Like, again, it's appeal to absurdity, saying it's an outlier, and then saying that this is not Araki's intent. Do they know that this is not Araki's intent, or are they just saying that because they're appealing to absurdity? By saying it's obvious because of how absurd it is otherwise. So, I mean, I don't really know JoJo's stuff. I've seen people debunk this specific point. I actually think it might have been Surfbone. I can't remember. I think he actually reacted to this video before me. Yeah, no, he definitely did. And I wanted to do it, but I was just too busy. But I believe that they argued that she was holding back. She didn't even want to break out, and that's why. And apparently there's a lot of other things, like other feats in JoJo's that actually supports like this level of power. And yeah, just because these are like humans that she's fighting doesn't mean that they're only human level. So,
and he was absolutely right. It was a very cool scene. But because it happened, it's now a feat, and power scalers will take this, apply a bunch of math and physics to something that never took those things into account in the first place, and use that to say a character is so-and-so level while ignoring all the other evidence to the contrary. And why?
I mean, why is he saying that there's no like math or physics that was ever thought of? Like, I don't know the context of the scene, so maybe you guys can enlighten me, but why were the meteors spawned in? Meteors are known to be these very powerful like types of attacks. Why were they spawned in? Blah blah blah. But if it's meant for a power display, that would make sense and that would be math and physics behind it.
Why would people do something like that? Because of the second major flaw. People want their favorite guy to win. Human beings are inherently biased creatures. It's just...
You know what the funniest thing about this though? Is that it's usually anti-power scalers that do this, and then they don't know how to even argue why their character wins anyways. Because like people are like, there's people who are anti-power scalers, but they still power scale. Like, this guy is power scaling. This guy doesn't even know it, but he is literally power scaling. You know how he's power scaling? By arguing that that character in JoJo's isn't that strong. That's power scaling. If he didn't want to power scale at all, he'd just say, well, I don't care, or I don't know. But no, he was trying to justify why she isn't that strong, because that was not Araki's intent. This guy is literally power scaling. He's arguing reasons why they're not that strong. But yeah, I don't remember what he says for favoritism, but yes, there is a lot of favoritism that's bad, but that's inherent to not just power scaling, like narrative analysis. Oh, damn, that's crazy. Define power scaling. Power scaling, okay, I'd say power scaling is the attempt to measure or explain a character's level of power and abilities. And then using their, like, mentality and fight styles to determine how they would perform in a fight or whatever. Just basically measuring a character's power and abilities, essentially. Thanks for the super chat, Metamo. Appreciate that. $5. Xenon did unlock. I think the character could have interesting matchups with characters from other series, supposed to work on a cosmic level. I've read the first 50 or so chapters. I definitely want to get back into it. I really liked it. But yes, I definitely would get back into it. And from what I've seen, they've gotten pretty strong. But as I was saying, favoritism that appears in just regular narrative analysis. People shit on Black Clover because they like Naruto, and they think Black Clover is ripping off of Naruto. People shit on Black Clover because they're Bleach fans. They don't like how much Tabata references Bleach. Like, yes, favoritism is bad in power scaling, but it's not just in power scaling. But I don't think he says it's just in power scaling. That's just like would be my response.
Just a fact of life. And fictional stories have an innate ability to connect to us on a deep and personal level. Our favorite characters are almost a part of us, and as such, we become very attached to them. And there's nothing wrong with that. But when someone else comes along and says that a different character is stronger than our favorite guy, we don't like hearing that. It brings out the same...
I mean, most people, and this is the thing, is most power scalers don't really do this. Like, for example, Asta is one of my favorite characters in fiction. There are so many characters that you'd lose to. So many. Like, so much of Dragon Ball he would get destroyed by. Yamcha would probably solo Black Clover. Even though I like Black Clover more than Dragon Ball. And I know a lot of people can't admit that. But yes, favoritism exists, but favoritism isn't literally everything. So I don't think it's really a problem that applies to power scaling. And honestly, if you look into power scaling, that's how you can root out favoritism. Because if you root out favoritism with power scaling, you can see their feats, their speed, their power, their abilities. Because speed, power, and abilities, you have to justify why they're this fast, why they're this strong, what their abilities are, what are the strengths and abilities of their weaknesses. But if you just, without power scaling, favoritism will always win. Guys, if there was no power scaling, it pretty much would always be the most popular battle shonen is always getting the win. And you know what? That kind of already happens. Jujutsu Kaisen, Demon Slayer, My Hero Academia, all these verses, which are very, very popular, are often very overranked because of how popular they are. And that's favoritism. And how do we combat favoritism and power scaling? By literally just power scaling. Marcel, if you go by the anime of Dragon Ball, he definitely would. So, Mr. Star, I don't think that you necessarily need to predict the outcome of a fight for it to be power scaling. Because you can power scale just to get a gauge of how powerful a character is, but it doesn't have to even be contingent on if he'll win a fight. It can just be, oh, I'm just trying to show how strong this character is. It doesn't, I'm not pairing him against a different character. I'm just showing like, oh, this is the energy that he can emit. This is the speed he can fight at. This is what his ability does. Let's say for Asta example, anti-magic, it negates magic, etc. Oh, that's definitely true, Marcel, but there are Bleach fans that don't like Black Clover because of how similar it is to Bleach. Yeah, that's what I was basically arguing. Young Chief is anime Yamcha is like perfect cell level.
In primal childhood playground defensive need to insist that no, my dad could beat up your dad. Even if the other kid's dad is a black belt ex-Navy SEAL bodybuilder, it doesn't matter because I love my dad and I really, really want him to win. So when it comes to power scaling, the most popular...
Wait, did you guys hear that?
Doesn't matter because I love my dad and I really, really... Their kid's dad is a black belt ex-Navy SEAL bodybuilder. It doesn't matter because I love my dad and I really, really want him...
He's power scaling dads.
...to win. So when it comes to power scaling, the most popular characters tend to have the largest, staunchest defense squad ready to come out...
Marcel, I'm not crazy, or we're not crazy. Yamcha has perfect cell feats in the Dragon Ball anime. It's not in the manga, because it's filler. But there's the Toei Z anime, which is its own continuity. It has Yamcha fighting Alibu, and a stronger Alibu who could fight Pikkon, a version of Pikkon who one-shot Super Perfect Cell. That's, again, it's anime only. It's not in the manga. But if you go by the anime, then yeah, he is.
Out of the woodwork to provide any and every feat possible to ensure that they always come out on top no matter what. And for a perfect example of this phenomenon, we need look no further than the bat in the room. People love Batman. He is one of the most popular fictional characters of all time. Even among people who aren't into superheroes at all, Batman is a household name, and with good reason. With a rock-solid basic concept, decades of excellent comic book storylines, critically acclaimed feature films, a few banger video games, and several great animated TV shows under his utility belt, Batman is awesome. And I love Batman too. He's my second favorite superhero after Spider-Man. So, fellow Bat fans, please don't take it the wrong way when I say that you're all annoying as hell. It comes from a place of love, I promise. But when you take the idea of authors writing scenes without any consideration for power scaling, and compound that over nearly 100 years of continuous Batman content with dozens, probably hundreds of writers projecting their own preferences and limitations onto the character, each with their own tolerance for putting the rule of cool over consistency, and then you unleash all of that material to untold hordes of adoring fans who are more than happy to scour every bit of that material for something, anything to support their position in a given argument, and it's almost inevitable that people would come up with reasons that Batman could defeat, well, just about any character given enough prep time, regardless of whether it actually makes any sense for Batman to win that fight. I mean, he's a very smart, very capable fighter, but he's still an
Again, as somebody who doesn't really scale DC at all, it's going to be harder for me to like try and like attack these points. But it doesn't change the fact that you have times where Batman is duking it out with superpowered characters. Mr. Star, I don't like power scaling because people turn into this show is better than this show because... Okay, Mr. Star, like, I know that people do that, but that is a very, very rare thing to happen. The vast majority of the time, if people are power scaling, it's just to see which character or which verse is stronger, not that that means that verse is written better. Exactly, Mark Strike.
unpowered human at the end of the day, and he routinely struggles against the mostly street-level characters in his rogues gallery. And yet, you will find fairly compelling arguments all over the internet for why he would defeat characters who,